it's pretty clear that President Trump has declared himself pro-innovation, pro-technology. But what do you make of the way he's going about it?
So, as you say, I think the administration has been really transparent about what their goals are in terms of innovation and competition. And it's interesting to see them approaching it in a variety of different ways. Some are focused on trying to promote U.S. industry. Some are focused on trying to protect U.S. industry. But you're seeing this across trade. I think you're going to see it in the AI action plan that the administration is going to be working on soon. We are hoping that quantum competitiveness will be part of what the White House is focused on. So I think you're going to be seeing this in a number of areas.
Your whole role is advancing enterprise software companies' leadership and global policy. So how much are they having their voices heard when we see the latest impact on Digital Services Act, but then also what's happening with China and the impact that has on an Apple, for example?
So you raise the Digital Services Act. It's true that that's an act that has more of a focus on social media companies, for example, rather than enterprise software. There are so many impacts that the Trump administration can have, I think, including many in a positive way on enterprise software. Some of the issues that are front of mind are not ones that are going to be impacted by enterprise. So, for example, speech issues. There's a lot that's happening that's really positive from AI enterprise and AI software. That's not going to be impacted by those. But on the other hand, I think the administration has a real opportunity to lead in terms of digital trade. I think they have a real opportunity to lead in terms of AI adoption. And, there's so much focus and attention to building the large LLM models. And, of course, that's important. But what we really need to have the broadest positive economic impact is AI adoption across a wide range of industries. And that is something that I think there's real potential for the administration to take the lead on.
And companies have been trying to think of Microsoft and really focusing in on the consumer applications with the Mustafa Suleyman hire, for example, and promotion of him. Victoria, what is it then that the companies that you're talking with and that companies currently are trying to navigate and maybe be politicking, as we see with Tim Cook, what do they really want? Is it clarity, or is it actually that they do want change here?
So let's talk about AI and what's happening in AI regulation. And I would say, speaking for enterprise software, I think there are at a broad level, there are three things that we want. First, we are pro-regulation. We think it makes sense to have regulation. What we don't want is bad regulation. And what I would characterize bad regulation is regulation that's unworkable, regulation that is addressing the wrong issues. So I think that's important. Second, there needs to be clarity. One of the hindrances to innovation we have right now is there's so much churn in the system. Is regulation coming? Is it not? Who will it apply to? Who will it won't? And that is an enormous drag on a company's ability to innovate and plan forward. And then the third thing that we need is consistency. The thing that is even worse than lack of clarity is inconsistency across different laws being passed by the U.S. states, different laws being passed by other countries that are in conflict for one another. And that is even more of a problem if you are a small company that is going to have even more difficulty dealing with those. So no bad regulation, clarity, and consistency are three things that are critical if we are going to continue to move forward.
Victoria, you mentioned the small players. A lot of the headlines come from the big tech giants. But what do some of the policies that you're thinking about, how would that affect perhaps some of the smaller technology companies? Would it only benefit the large incumbents?
No, I think actually, in many cases, the biggest positive impact will be on the smaller companies. So they won't be held down by, for example, unworkable or inconsistent regulation. I mean, there's so much happening in the AI policy space. But here are two things that I would emphasize, and I think these will have an impact on all companies, including and perhaps in particular small companies. One is at the federal level. So in terms of what's happening here in Washington, D.C., a focus on promoting AI adoption is something that we're expecting to see. And there's been support for that in the past, but we're expecting a lot more activity this year, coming year, on AI adoption. But the second thing I would say is that any company that wants to understand what is happening in AI regulation right now has to be looking at what is happening in the states. The U.S. states. There's a tremendous amount of activity there. We're very focused there. You had Colorado pass the first comprehensive AI law last year, but now you have Texas, Connecticut, Virginia, California. They all want to be next. And that the states are going to move legislation and regulation. So when you talk about all companies, but in particular small companies, trying to deal with this, the regulation that's coming and trying to deal with inconsistencies that we may see there, that if that comes to pass, that is going to be a big drag on innovation.